Listen closely, because what I'm about to lay before you is not meant for the soft-hearted, the fragile, or those still clutching the comfort of mediocrity. This message is not for men who want safety. It is for those willing to step into a colder realm where strength is carved in silence and power is sculpted in restraint. There exists a hidden quality, concealed yet always present, that divides the untouchable from the ordinary herd. Machiavelli spoke of it in fragments centuries ago. The rare men who carried it endured betrayal, envy, and upheaval without ever faltering. It is not charm, it is not kindness, and it is not even brilliance. It is something sharper, a weapon forged in stillness. Once you possess it, the noise of the world no longer controls you. Slander becomes dust, insults become whispers, and weakness loses its hold. This is not about being liked. It is about becoming untouchable. And the first step is this: mark the moment. Declare it aloud, burn it into your psyche. Whisper it or shout it, but make it real. I walk with fire that does not burn me. That declaration is the threshold. Cross it, and you begin your transformation. Power, contrary to the illusions of the weak, is never handed down. It does not fall into your lap through luck, applause, or titles. Power must be seized, shaped, and defended with ruthless intent. The hidden law of power is brutal but simple. You must sever your addiction to approval. Approval is the leash by which society drags men into obedience. Most live and die on that chain, begging for recognition, performing for applause, surrendering their freedom in exchange for temporary validation. Machiavelli understood that the crowd is unstable, the same mob that cheers. Your name today will demand your downfall tomorrow. He wrote that it is safer to be feared than loved because fear is rooted in respect, while love is fragile, conditional, and fleeting. To rise above, you must stand where neither love nor hate sways you. You must be cold enough to watch allies betray you, rivals smile at you, and still move without your heartbeat shifting. When betrayal arrives, and it will, you absorb it. You adjust and you act with surgical precision, never with panic. Cold power requires the death of reaction. You do not beg for understanding. You do not explain yourself to small minds. You let others chatter, accuse, or plot while you sharpen your edge in silence. This is not passivity, it is discipline. The armor of masculine stoicism forged in fire and frost. Ask yourself this: what if nothing could break your composure? What if every insult slid off your skin like rain against steel? What if manipulation failed because you wanted nothing from anyone? That is the law. The one who needs nothing cannot be controlled. Anchor this truth in your mind. Etch it in blood if you must. No approval, no leash, no chains. Because the man who refuses to seek validation cannot be broken, and the unbreakable man eventually bends the world to his will. Now understand this. Power lives and dies in perception. Perception is the battlefield where victories are won and empires are built. Truth means nothing compared to the image you project. Most men are enslaved by their reputations, desperately polishing their public masks while bleeding out their strength in private. But the strategist turns this into a weapon. He does not chase perception. He engineers it. He designs what others believe, molds how they interpret his presence, his silence, his movement. The world does not reward authenticity. It rewards the performance of certainty. If you appear decisive, people follow. If you appear indifferent, they crave your attention. If you appear unshaken while storms rage, they will believe you are carved from stone. This is not deceit. This is power. People hunger for certainty, and they will kneel to the man who provides it, even if that certainty is colder than ice. When you master perception, enemies hesitate before lifting a hand. Allies protect your position, and rivals sabotage themselves in their desperate chase for recognition. Yet there is danger here. Never drink from the mirror you build. Control the mask, but never believe it. For masks can be ripped away in an instant. Only the man beneath, the calm, detached, and untouchable core remains invincible. This is the secret of perception. Wield it, but do not need it. Imagine entering a room and commanding it without speaking. Not because of who you truly are, but because of the disciplined image you've constructed. That is the line between ruler and subject, between the replaceable and the immortal. Burn this into yourself. I hold the mask. The mask does not hold me. When you master this, you no longer play the game of power. You twist it until the board itself belongs to you. But none of this matters if you are ruled by emotion. Emotional immunity is the heart of untouchable power. Think carefully. How do manipulators control you? They trigger anger, they exploit fear, they tempt desire, they whisper guilt. Every weakness is tethered to emotion. Every time you react, you hand over the steering wheel of your life. Machiavelli wrote that the prince who cannot rule himself will be ruled by others. The man who cannot govern his rage will stumble into traps. The man who cannot master fear will hesitate when it matters most. The man enslaved by lust will sell himself for a fraction of his worth. But the man who forges emotional immunity becomes a fortress. Imagine standing in the middle of chaos. Betrayal swirling, insults cutting, envy boiling, and your heartbeat does not rise. Imagine enemies hurling venom while you continue forward, eyes locked on the horizon. That is immunity. You do not deny anger, you refine it into fuel. You do not suppress fear, you sharpen it into awareness. You do not kill desire, you harness it as leverage. Cold power does not mean emptiness, it means unshakable composure. And once people realize they cannot provoke you, they begin to orbit you, powerless to break your calm. This is masculine stoicism at its highest form, not softness, but steel. The moment you stop reacting, you stop being prey. At that point, the world's hooks fall useless, and you shift from defense to offense, moving with precision while everyone else drowns in their own storms. Remember this mantra: no one commands my fire. I am the master of my storm. Say it, own it, live it. Because emotional immunity is not the absence of feeling. It is the birth of power itself. Yet even immunity without direction is wasted. Power without strategy burns out like a firework, loud, bright, and gone in seconds. To remain untouchable, you must breathe strategy. Ruthless discipline in planning keeps you 10 steps ahead while others stumble blindly. Most people drift, waiting for luck, waiting for opportunities, waiting for a hand to guide them. That is weakness. The strategist waits for nothing. He builds. He studies the board, maps the desires of allies and enemies, and sets traps so subtle that by the time they are sprung, it is already too late. Strategy is not only for war, it is psychological, social, financial, even emotional. Every word, every alliance, every silence is weighed against the larger plan. The weak waste strength on every insult, every distraction, every small quarrel. The strategist ignores the trivial. He conserves energy for the strike that matters. He asks with every move, does this advance me toward the throne, or does it feed my ego and weaken me? The lion does not chase every antelope. It waits for the one kill worth its energy. Strategy demands sacrifice. You will cut ties, endure solitude, and forsake pleasures to secure permanent power. Few can stomach this, which is why they remain pawns. But if you can live with discipline, you stop reacting and start orchestrating. The world ceases to be a battlefield. It becomes your game piece by piece. And when others see you calm, silent, always ahead, they will not see the scars or the sacrifices. They will only see the design, a man who cannot be touched. Finally, understand this. If strategy is the skeleton of power, influence is its lifeblood. Influence is the art of shaping reality without brute force. Machiavelli knew that direct pressure creates resistance, but subtle influence plants seeds that grow into obedience without struggle. To master influence is to move like a shadow, present everywhere yet unseen. The weak beg for attention. The powerful redirect it without asking. Influence begins with understanding human chains. Fear, greed, desire, pride, belonging. Every soul is bound by one or more of these. If you can see the chain, you can pull it. True influence does not demand. It engineers consent, making others believe they chose the very path you designed. This is the dark art of cold power. To detach, to master perception, to become immune, to plan ruthlessly, and to bend reality through influence. Not through noise, but through silence. Not through begging, but through presence. The untouchable man is not born. He is constructed, decision by decision, discipline by discipline. He is carved by restraint, sharpened by patience, armored in silence. And when he walks into the world, storms rage, crowds scream, enemies plot. But he remains still, inevitable, unbreakable. Declare it now, I am untouchable, because I rule myself. And the one who rules himself rules everything. Listen carefully, because this isn't meant for everyone. What I am about to unfold is not for those who cling to comfort, not for the sentimental, not for the ones terrified of losing their grip on illusions. This message is reserved only for those who dare to step beyond warmth and embrace the cold mechanics of power. Influence is not soft. It is not given. It is taken, wielded, sharpened, and maintained with a ruthless detachment. The weak beg for loyalty, the fragile plead for validation, but the untouchable understands a deeper law. People are not to be worshipped. They are to be used. You praise only when it tightens their leash. You deny only when it inflames their hunger. You reward only when it fastens their obedience. And through it all, you remain detached, untouched, unaddicted to the very strings you pull. The dangerous truth is this: if you ever fall in love with the role you play, you become enslaved by it. That is where most men drown. They confuse their mask with their identity, but the strategist never confuses the costume with the actor. The mask is temporary, disposable. The mind behind it remains cold, silent, calculating. Influence demands that you master the art of disguise. You must wear admiration when standing before the arrogant. You must wear protection before the fearful. You must wear ambition before the hungry. They will believe you are the answer they seek, but in reality, you are the architect of their perception. True influence leaves no fingerprints. It doesn't scream. It doesn't declare. It whispers through silence and reshapes decisions until your target believes the idea was theirs all along. That is the highest form of mastery. Not being thanked for giving orders, but being celebrated for planting seeds that others believe sprouted from their own soil. The colder your hand, the more invisible your reach. Imagine this. While your enemies waste their strength in open conflict, you stand in silence, bending alliances, fracturing bonds, guiding movements until the center of gravity is always you. That is the empire of shadows, built not on fists or swords, but on strings no one sees until it is too late. But influence is not immediate. It doesn't erupt in fireworks. It seeps like poison through the bloodstream, unnoticed, unresisted, until it has saturated every organ. The moment it takes hold, resistance collapses without battle. People defend you without being asked. They obey you while believing it was their own choice. This is the cruel genius of power, when others enslave themselves with joy, while you remain untouchable behind the curtain. When enemies rise, you do not strike openly. You let whispers corrode their reputation. You let perception isolate them. You let their own alliances crumble. They collapse without ever seeing your hand, and you remain spotless. This is the law of cold control, direction without exposure, manipulation without confrontation. And yet such a path is not for the naive. To master influence, your heart must be harder than stone. Because you will hand people the very tools that destroy them, and you will watch without pity as they collapse. Power is not a game for the sentimental. It belongs only to those who can command without being consumed by guilt. Declare it now and let it echo through your mind. I move in silence, but my reach is everywhere. That is how the untouchable begins. But power does not begin with others. It begins within. The battlefield of dominance is not the world outside. It is the architecture of your mind. The strongest fortress is not made of walls or steel, but of discipline, perspective, and unshakable law. If your mind is fragile, every insult will pierce you, every rejection will cut you, every distraction will lure you into surrender. But if your mind is forged into a fortress, you become immovable, unbreachable, a citadel that no storm can enter. Machiavelli warned long ago that rulers who rely on others collapse when loyalties shift, but those who cultivate strength within themselves cannot be toppled. This is the essence of the untouchable, mastering your inner world so that no external force can dictate your state. The weak live in reaction. They absorb the chaos around them, let it dictate their moods, their worth, their choices. The fortress mind reverses this order. You dictate your inner state and the world conforms to you. That is true cold power. Picture your mind as a throne room. Most men leave their gates wide open. Every insult, every opinion, every temptation marches inside and sits upon their throne. But the untouchable fortifies his palace. 4 walls rise, each one essential. Clarity, discipline, emotional mastery, and detachment. With these, no storm can enter. Now imagine living this way. Insults strike but bounce off your walls. Betrayal arrives but finds no weakness to exploit. Chaos rages outside but cannot step through your gates. That calm terrifies people because they cannot control what they cannot move. And within this fortress, you wield silence like a sword. Loose words are cracks in the wall, and the weak expose themselves by spilling their fears, desires, and insecurities. The untouchable speaks with weight, or not at all. Each silence builds unease, each word cuts with precision. Solitude, too, is essential. Weak men drown without constant company, validation, or noise. But solitude is where your fortress grows stronger. Alone, you sharpen your mind. Confront your weaknesses and forge them into strength. Solitude breaks the fragile, but it empowers the powerful. Remember this, every fortress requires constant vigilance. If you neglect discipline, if you let cracks appear, your enemies will find a way inside. Weak men hope for good days. The fortress mind commands the day to kneel, but the fortress is meaningless without one final art, ruthless detachment. What destroys men faster than enemies is not attack from outside, it is attachment from within. Clinging is the rot that weakens even the strongest walls. Clinging to love, to friendship, to wealth, to outcomes. Each is a leash tied to your throat. The moment people see what you cling to, they know how to control you. Puppeteers rule the world by pulling strings, and men who cannot cut their strings are doomed to dance forever. Detachment is not emptiness, it is supreme freedom. It makes you unpredictable, and unpredictability breeds fear. Fear breeds hesitation. Hesitation births advantage, and advantage is the root of power. Imagine losing everything, wealth, allies, lovers, and walking away with the same composure. Imagine betrayal unfolding before you, and you watch without panic. Imagine enemies conspiring, allies wavering, the world turning against you, and yet you remain untouched because you were never chained to any of it. That is what terrifies the masses. A man who cannot be owned cannot be broken. A man who cannot be broken becomes eternal. This is the final ascension, the merging of every principle we have carved into your mind. Clarity, perception, discipline, emotional immunity, strategic foresight, silent influence, ruthless detachment, all threads of the same fabric, woven together into something greater. This is not knowledge. This is being. When you cross this threshold, you cease chasing power and begin to embody it. The air around you thickens with inevitability. Your silence stills entire rooms. Your composure freezes storms before they touch you. And this state, the state of the untouchable, is not arrogance. Arrogance is fragile, constantly demanding applause. Ascension requires nothing. It does not shout. It simply exists, and in existing it dominates. Machiavelli warned that men are ruled not by truth but by perception, fear, and necessity. The untouchable commands all three. This is the highest tier of dominance, not simply feared or respected, but necessary. The throne belongs not to the man who shines brightest in one moment, but to the man who never stops playing. Power is never permanent. It is rented, and the rent is paid daily with discipline, detachment, and vigilance. Declare it now. I rule myself. I rule my world. This is not motivation. This is metamorphosis. If you are ready to embrace this law, to transcend weakness, and claim your throne as untouchable, then you are ready for the path of cold power. The illusions have been cut. The weapons are in your hands. The rest is on you.